Hello, friend, and welcome back to my studio. I just got back last week from a 3-week trip to Utah for a family reunion and a painting job. Before I left, my husband and I touched base on how we're doing about 1 year into our marriage. The answer is great, but both of us do feel like there's a part of ourselves we've lost touch with in joining our lives so completely. So, while I was away, I paid special attention to what I do differently on my own, what exactly it was that marriage has made me miss. And the answer is to subscribe to my channel. I paint and I tell stories, and if you like that kind of thing, I'd love to see you join my little club. And if you like the work I make, go ahead and join my newsletter to find out when I put it up for sale. Now, back to the story. When Paul and I moved in together, I was in a state of hyper-productivity. We had a wedding to plan and a budget to keep, so being the creative person I am, I kept on seeing exorbitant wedding prices and deciding, I could do better for cheaper. I was completely right. My wedding was customized and gorgeous and nearly 100% handmade. But getting to that point was a lot of work. I worked on wedding projects pretty much every minute of the day that I could. Paul offered to help, but since everything was in my head and since I have a high standard for the creative work he just wasn't used to doing, I didn't really let him help. Any task I could outsource I would, but the majority of it was just me embroidering my veil while we watched our nightly show. Then, after the wedding, we moved into our own place, and I tried to use my new hyper-productivity habits to set the home up as quickly as possible. I had some ticking clock in my head. Paul mentioned throwing a housewarming party, and I took that to mean get the house entirely assembled and beautiful within weeks of moving in. I was able to pack and unpack efficiently and swiftly, but then I had to assemble a difficult piece of custom furniture, and my idea just wasn't working, and as I hit unexpected difficulty after impossible wall, I kept on breaking all the way down, and crying and depressing around the house. It wasn't just the furniture, it was any bump in the road. I cried at the tip of a hat, and I felt so defeated every day. Then I finally got off the wait list for a therapist and into sessions, and I learned just how unsustainable my productivity was. Essentially, I had overextended myself for so long that I was emotionally fragile and very easily breakable. We worked on techniques to heal, but she left the clinic before I felt we'd made any real progress, and I was back on a wait list that I remain on to this day. Well, over time, I did manage to heal, but I went too far in the opposite direction. Through a stretch of unemployment, I dove right back into depression, and instead of productivity, I embraced lethargy. I moved from the bed to the couch and back, day after day, with no energy to do anything. I tried to push myself, but always felt just out of resources to do anything. And then it wasn't a matter of resources, it was a matter of not wanting to do anything. I worked my way up and dropped back down, then climbed back up and fell right back down into my depressions. For months, it felt like I was getting back up just so the next blow wouldn't kick me while I'm still down. But all things come to an end, and eventually I worked out of the bucket of depression and still found myself with no idea what to do with my time. I felt then, and I still feel now, like I only have challenging hobbies. I love oil painting, which is intense and requires long work sessions. I love sculpting soapstone, which is physically brutal and requires full dust covering gear and loud music. I love deep cleaning, which exhausts me physically and makes my husband nervous. I'm too much of a feminist to do too much more housework than him, so when he sees me putting in extra, unnecessary hours of cleaning labor, he knows that I'll get mad if he doesn't at least try to do some of the same eventually. Is it fair? No. Is it true? Yeah. But when I didn't have energy, none of these activities appealed to me, and I just didn't know what else to do. Even reading a book felt too productive to be restful and too restful to be productive. Throughout my lethargic period, I kept trying to make micro adjustments. I started taking different vitamins, I changed up my psychiatric medicines, I kept changing my diet, I kept changing my habits. I still always just felt drained, like a bathtub without a plug to keep the water in. I thought it could be my weed use, so I stopped. Then restarted. Then stopped, and then I started again. Only to stop once more, only to start and stop, and so on. I do still think that it has an impact, but I feel like I'm finally able to moderate my weed use because of what I learned about myself in Utah. In Utah, I learned that I am an object that, when in motion, remains in motion, and when at rest, remains at rest. Crazy that physics apply to me, I know, who would have thought? But basically, I had no energy because I really wasn't spending energy. Not as much energy as I had to give, at least. Each day at the cabin I was staying was long and grueling and physically exhaustive in every muscle, and I fucking loved it. I loved the fresh air, the sun, and most of all the challenge. I already know I love challenge. Now I know that challenge is essential to me. I overdid it with the wedding projects. I wasn't resting properly, and it took a toll on me. But then I also overdid it with the healing. I turned lethargic and stayed there too long. What I learned about myself that I had been missing during my first year of marriage was that I want to be way more productive. My husband would tell you that I was never truly unproductive. I started a YouTube channel, post weekly videos, paint weekly whether I want to or not. I set up our house in months. I read several books a week. I exercise, cook, clean, and learn all the time and more. But I know that most of my after-work hours used to be spent on the couch, scrolling through nothing because I don't have social media, somehow still being unsatisfied on my phone the whole day, and then going to bed and sleeping badly. And I thought, because my husband savors his rest time, that my rest time was just as needed, and I tried not to push myself too much. But in Utah, I realized that pushing myself is more satisfying to me than excessive rest. In a way, it felt restful to know that I'd spent another day of my life doing whatever the hell I actually wanted to do. I didn't realize just how deeply attached my eternal quest for challenge and my satisfaction and productivity were. I made a firm stance against the word productive years ago, because I felt that it boiled way too many activities down to worthwhile or not worthwhile. And just because an activity like longboarding didn't produce anything, didn't mean it wasn't worth doing. Now, I've just reframed what I mean by productive. When I say it now, I think of pretty much anything that takes energy to do. It is never productive to scroll on my phone. It is always productive to do art. After coming home from Utah, I had a day where I didn't want to do anything at all, and that made me so sad I cried myself out of bed, through lunch, and into a nap. Then I slept for the rest of the day and through the next night. The day after that, I thought about what I actually wanted to do, and I felt like I couldn't really do anything because the house wasn't immaculately clean. It was only tidy. So I cleaned, and I found a lot of joy in the work of it. I did little projects and tidying up around the house that I've been neglecting, like finding a basket for our new gaming systems and taking a heating pad that didn't work out of the snake tank. Then I went back to work and back to the gym, and I had a day just getting used to that again. And the next day after work, I asked myself, what do I really want to do? Not what do I think I want to do, which would be rest on the couch, I guess. Not what sounded like a burden and I wanted to get it out of the way, like weeding the garden. I could do anything at all as long as I wanted to do it. And you know what I wanted to do? Deep clean and repair my couch. I carpet cleaned and vacuumed and removed the fur off the couch and measured the area that I needed to repair. Then I went to Home Depot and they didn't have the kind of carpet I needed, so I gave up and went back and sat on the couch. But that felt bad, so after an hour, I went to Walmart and got some cheap rugs and was able to use those to fix the couch. I let my cat scratch it, so I was really just putting more scratchable fabric over the one arm that she likes. When my husband asked me if I wanted to do something more relaxing, I told him no. I actually really wanted to work on the couch. And the next day, I actually wanted to weed the garden. My husband had to come get me for dinner before I stopped. He told me with a laugh that it makes him a little nervous how productive I am. I told him it made me a little nervous too, but the excited kind. I think I have such lust for life that I'm just not happy living any other way than using my entire day each day, resting when my body calls for it, but not over-assuming the amount of rest I actually need. It links back to my opinion on my own reasons for wanting to unalive myself. It was never really because I didn't want life. It's because I wanted life so much, and the weight just felt immovable. I want to go get degrees and training in everything I've ever been interested in just to know it. I really want to see all the plants and all the animals around me every day. I want to live like I've only got one life because I firmly believe I do. I don't know why I'm alive. I don't know why I want to clean the couch on a Tuesday, but I am, and I do, and I love it. I'm not being productive to produce anything. I'm being productive because I have energy to give so long as I keep using it. Let me know in the comments if you can relate or if you think I'm insane. I'd like to know your experience with productivity too. And if you like this painting, subscribe so you see how it turns out. Thank you for being here, friend, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye!